Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the school committee, Town of Foxborough regular meeting today, November 20th, 2017. Apologize for being a few minutes late. That's my fault. Tough night tonight with all of the parent-teacher conferences. But just for any parents watching who don't participate, highly recommend it. It's always a great experience, no matter what you think, how your child's doing. It's just a great opportunity to meet the teachers, really great teachers at Foxborough High School. So tonight, our agenda is as follows: visitors, then approval of minutes. Then we have 2 teaching and learning highlights. We have the FHS High School Quiz Bowl team, followed by the Foxborough Public Schools food service video. We then will do an official introduction of our new incoming assistant superintendent, Ms. Allison Mello. We have Foxborough Public Schools strategies to prevent and minimize racial, ethnic, cultural, religious, or gender bias and/or discrimination in our students and in our schools. We're then going to do some transfers. One of Ms. Spinelli's board committee appointments to incoming superintendent, Dr. Berdos, effective January 1st, 2018, specifically the BICO, Bi-County Collaborative Board of Directors, and also the PCC, Project Contemporary Competitiveness Board of Directors. And then we also have a vote to authorize Dr. Berdos to act for and on behalf of the town of Foxborough for the Massachusetts School Building Authority with regard to the Burrell renovation project, also effective January 1st, 2018. Mr. Yukna will then give us an FY18 budget update. We have a donation to accept. We'll take up any other matters, and then tonight the committee is going into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body, and the committee will not be returning to open session tonight. Having read through that, are there any visitors who wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll take up our minutes. First, the regular meeting minutes of November 6th. Yes, Marilyn.
Matt Sharkey, not Starkey. On the minutes. Right? Thank you. Good catch.
Thanks for catching that.
I missed that one
Just
too.
noticed that, actually.
Starkey sounds pretty
Matt,
good.
don't worry.
Thank you.
Anybody notice anything else? Oh, that was a good catch, because I didn't catch that either.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
I neither. I was just glad they were here.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
Thanks, Chris.
I'll second the motion.
Thanks, Tina. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 5-0. And the second minutes we are looking at are the executive session meeting minutes of October 16th, 2017.
I didn't have any changes.
Mrs. Bellinger, would you like to make the motion?
I would be delighted to make the motion. I move to approve the executive session minutes of October 16th, 2017.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? 5-0.
I'd like to make a motion to release these minutes.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? 5-0. Great, thank you, everybody. Okay, Mrs. Spinelli, are you gonna do the first teaching and learning highlight, or are we gonna let Mrs. Myers-Packla do that?
I would love to invite her up with her, but we've got the 5 of the 6 members here, so you think we're good to go? Yes. Okay. I would love to do it, but Matt, if it helps at all, your name was correct in the minutes of the meeting. It just wasn't correct in the attendance line.
Oh,
so
that's all right.
You had kind of two last names in there. Okay, so let's start with our wonderful teaching highlight. So if our quiz bowl team could come up and bring their chairs, and Mrs. Myers-Packla, we would love you to weigh in on this fabulous group of young men. Hung Yu Lin is not here tonight. She is also a member of the team. So I am going to turn it over to the team captain, Noah Foley, who will introduce.
Co-captains.
Is he really the?
Yeah.
You were just saying that before the meeting, and I believed you.
No.
I believe I believe a lot of what you say.
No, I said he was.
Everyone does.
Oh, I thought you were. I'm so sorry.
They understand.
Anyway, I misunderstood what you said. I thought you said as team captain. So Nate Dumont, are you captain?
Yes.
Okay, so Nate, I'll turn it over to you. And if you would introduce the team members and tell us, what's the whole process? How did you put together a team? Sorry, I misunderstood, but I'll make you the honorary team captain.
All right, so we're all seniors. This is Yasa Baig, Noah Foley. I'm Nate Dumont, Josh Jacobson, and Will Pote. So we were us four over here, we were the people who were competing in the competition, and Will was our alternate. So in case someone wasn't there or an injury happened, he would sub in. So basically, the high school quiz show, which is hosted by WGBH, it has its event called Super Sunday. And basically at Super Sunday, there's 99 schools across Massachusetts that all go to WGBH headquarters. And basically they compete in a trivia competition. And there's 10 categories, 10 questions in each category. And basically the score is out of 1,000. And the top 16 schools who have the highest scores qualify to go onto the TV show and go on in the tournament.
So how did it go this year? Why do you think this year? How did we get there?
Well, it went really well, we actually think, this year, especially compared to our lineup of previous years that we've done this. So Nate and I have been doing this since we were sophomores, right, Nate? Mm-hmm. Which is why we named ourselves and got to gather this ragtag gang together. Now, when we were sophomores, we were the alternates for the team, and if I remember, Taha Baig, Emily Conley, Penny Dring,
I think Abby too, right?
Abby Spare, and Tasneem Bootwala were the original team, and we got to sit in and kind of watch this, and we realized that this was something that we wanted to do ourselves going forward. So as juniors, we ended up being on a team, and things did not go that well in the room. So our main goal this year was to approach from a much better teamwork dynamic and to establish a much better group work aesthetic to this as we approach this year. And luckily it worked really well for us.
Impressive.
Yeah, also, so there's, like I mentioned before, there's 99 schools, and out of those 99 schools, we made it to the top 16. We had a score of 840 out of 1,000, I believe.
We were 810.
810, sorry.
It should have been 840.
It should have been 840,
40.
yes.
Oh yeah, so do you want to talk about
Yes.
that?
Yeah, so well, so what I was referring to is one of the questions on the math section, we were not okay with their answer, so we challenged their question. And we sent them an email, and they weren't very open to the challenge, but we're just going to keep pushing it.
Oh, right.
Because there were actually, depending on how you interpreted this particular question, do you want to explain that a little bit?
Putting my math, putting my math skills to the test. God, if all the math teachers are watching this, it's all wrong. All right, brief disclaimer: I'm not very good at probability. I'll do whatever other math you want, just not that. So the question is, like, if you put 3 oranges, 3 bananas, and like 3 like apples in a bag, or was it 3? Yeah,
Something like
that.
Each, yeah.
So it's like, what is the odds of pulling out like an apple and like any other fruit? So, or rather, like, what are the odds of just pulling out 2 different fruit? See, what the question didn't specify is whether or not you pull out one fruit and put it back in the bag, or whether as you pull out one fruit, keep it out, and pull out another fruit and keep it out as well. And then depending on what the depending on whether that's true, changes the answer by a pretty decent percentage. It didn't specify in like an average SAT or a question or like prep question usually, or like in a math class they would almost definitely specify, which they didn't. So we sent them a very explanatory email, but they weren't very open. It might be my math skills are just very lacking, which I think is probably the case here. But
They did review the question.
Yeah.
And they did say that they thought that the question, the way that it was asked, was appropriate as to how they had. So I had hoped that they would give a phone call so that I could explain the SAT portion and that what we meant by that, because that wasn't a part of the explanation. The email would have just gone on. So our contact there has been very open to many different things and many different questions. So I will go back in and just give her that little tidbit kind of a point. But neither here nor there. It did not harm or hurt, apparently, for us. So,
Worked
for the
out.
team.
We also got the chance to make one of our alternates one of the team members for the qualifying round, Josh Jacobson here. What would you say about your experiences about like having to suddenly be like in the room with the questions instead of what you were prepared for?
So at first I thought I was a little like caught off guard, kind of like I wasn't expecting to go in and answer questions. but eventually I got the hang of it and like got caught up with my other team members and was able to get into the flow of things.
So if you're an alternate, you can't even be in the room.
No, so as an alternate, I can't. So we are in the room, but we're behind them when they're at a table, and I'm sitting behind them, so I can't, like mouth any answers or use sign language or something to cheat in that way. So we are in the room. I get to hear all the questions. I get to listen to how they answer the questions, and I get to think about the questions myself. So if I do know an answer, I can't do anything about it, though, which is kind of a struggle, especially for me being a talkative person. It's kind of sitting there for like an hour not talking can be difficult.
So even on the very rare occasion that Yasa, Noah, Nate, and Josh were wrong, if you had the right answer, you couldn't do anything about
It's
it.
rough.
Not that that would ever happen.
One of 16 teams going forward. And so what happens next is, I think the second you made the qualifying rounds, I think I heard from Mrs. Myers-Packlow, like, all excited.
Very cool.
The very second. So what's the next step?
Go ahead.
Now it's time to start the grind. So we have like basic. Our school's never really done this before, so we're just kind of approaching this as a bunch of high school seniors would, and that's semi-seriously. So the main plan that we have, at least for starting our practice regimen, is that we're going to go over one of our houses and basically watch all the episodes from last year's season, just to kind of get an idea of how this is actually going to work. From then on, we'd hope that we could find like some questions online or through some other source that are of like a similar caliber to those that appear on the TV show, and then perhaps we could do like some like scrimmages. I know, right? Quiz bowl suddenly just became a sport.
I mean, we have alternates and like injuries apparently. So like, yeah.
So we're very excited, but we're also going to be very serious about getting down to work on this to make our town proud.
Yeah. Our main strategy is that we're each specializing in a different like subject matter. So Josh is really into sports, came very much in handy in the qualifying round, and then Nate's handling pop culture, right?
And
geography. And then Noah's doing
math, spelling, and literature and fine arts.
And I'm doing whatever else is left science math as well.
But not probability.
That's a very unlikely outcome.
I want to be honest. Yasa did figure out the answer to that question, but I had already raised my hand with our incorrect pre-established answer, so we could have gotten it right, but the timing just didn't work out.
Wow,
You don't want to
so
explain
technical.
how that works, the answering process?
Oh yeah. So basically, raising your hand is like a buzzer. There's no speaking or delegation.
That's the preliminary round that they're referencing.
Or sorry, deliberation, not delegation.
It's like 5 minutes.
After you raise your hand on the show, there will actually be Jeopardy-like buzzers.
So you're allowed about 5 seconds to have a conversation, should you choose to have a conversation about it. They're good about that, as in, is that your answer? So there is a person who reads the questions, there's an official scorekeeper, and then the coach, who's me. Coaching I haven't done other than, come on guys, you ready to go? Do I have your permission slips? And we also keep count too, just to make sure that we're, each category, that we're both on the same page, because at the end, we do know the scores. The students do know the scores.
5
on it,
seconds,
so.
not a long
And the
period of
questions
time.
are in ascending.
Yes.
amounts.
Yeah.
So what is it, 10?
It's like
10 to
10 to 30, yeah.
35.
35.
33.
Yeah.
something like that, yeah.
And also, because the questions are, you get 5 seconds to answer, but for each question you are allowed to ask them to repeat the question, and that provides extra time as well.
We
if
utilize that.
necessary.
Just Tad though.
When does this air? When are we gonna-
January, right?
We
This
go
one-
in January.
Go ahead, yes, this one doesn't air, we just got the date. So our taping date is January 21st of 2018, and that's at 1:15. There is an audience, I believe it's a limited amount, but we'll get whatever information out, of course, with families having first priority if they're interested in attending it. So,
Amazing.
Where will
It's
this
up to
be?
these
Where will
guys.
the taping be?
it's the PBS WSK, I always do the wrong one, station right in Boston on, I think it's Guest Street, I think is the name of the street. I see you might
Yeah.
navigate, I forgot the name of it.
I was a bad navigator.
So, but it's pretty cool, because they get to see kind of the inner workings, it's
Yeah.
2
Yeah.
or 3 different buildings.
It's a really nice
A
building.
lot of the the different programs that have gone out by PBS and like Arthur, other things like that, especially for the little ones, they do make note of it as well. So, so we have the 16 schools. We don't know what our bracket looks like yet. So we'll see how that goes and see how this might extend. So,
Just making it this far is
yeah.
a first for us and wonderful, and we're so proud.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
So we'll end where where we started. I want to say, Nate, I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Oh,
I
it's
am
fine.
getting older. My hearing is going a little bit, so I totally misheard.
Yeah, it's both
And,
Noah and I.
and then I thought we have kind of a joking relationship, and then I thought he was joking with me. And I'm like, no, you really just were old and a little bit deaf. So anyway, I apologize, team captain. So good luck.
Thanks.
to you and your team.
Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely, congratulations. Can I chime in on one thing? So, in addition to being trivia gods, these guys are all
Trivia gods, I
talented
like it.
musicians, great students, good all-around kids. Noah Foley got his Eagle Scout this year. I don't know how they're finding time to do everything that they're doing, but congratulations. And my question is, are you training the next group of Quiz Bowl students, since you're all seniors? Who is going to pick up
Oh, yeah, good
the
point.
torch?
No, we mentioned that, but
I knew we forgot something.
We're leaving a legacy behind.
Well, to tell the truth, Kendall was one of our alternates last year, so
Oh.
she potentially could pick up the slack
Oh,
next year.
okay, Kendall.
No
Now you're in the
pressure.
hot seat, no pressure.
She'd have to formulate her own team, though.
Yeah, so we'll see
Because
what
we're all
happens.
gone.
I'll get some juniors. Maybe
Like
Matt
an
can jump in
adventure
there
show.
too.
We'll keep.
And who isn't here, she's a senior
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
We're all
it's all seniors.
going out with a bang.
Good luck.
Well,
Thank you.
finish strong, as Mrs. Myers-Packer would say.
Absolutely.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Guys. Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes,
You
you
too.
too.
Thank you for being
Thank
here, Joe. That's awesome. Very happy.
Nice job.
So we're gonna try our food service video again?
It works.
All right.
Sure.
It's early.
I told
So
you.
somebody on one of the social media sites had seen this somewhere and commented positively
Yeah.
on it.
Oh, when you see it, it's
Yeah,
a
so-
phenomenal video.
So the comment
Such
that
a
I
great
saw was, "This is amazing," and somebody else said, I would eat this school lunch if they had something like this." So I'm really looking forward to seeing this. So this was, let's do an introduction though. So this is our Fox Public Schools food service video, which is called Real School Lunch, which was created by Samantha Therien. Let me hope I say it right. Did I say it right, Therien? Did I say it right? All right, Samantha Therien. I'm asking Diana, I thought maybe she'd know. Who's our dietetic intern with our food service director, Janice Watt.
Our mission is to provide nutritious, economical, and convenient meals for families here in Foxborough. The thing that I love most about my job is the kids. I like seeing the kids every day. I'm in the middle school, Foxborough Middle School, and watching them grow, feeding them. They come in, they're so excited. They come in as babies, and then by the time they leave here, they're almost adults. They're going to be in high school. So my favorite part about my job is the kids. I would love them to know about how fresh our food is, that a lot of it is cooked from scratch. I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of my staff. They're exceptional. They are great cooks. They're good with the kids, and they take a lot of pride in the food that they prepare. free to have a time. But I'm sure it's so the vegetarians coming to have it and stop coming every day to have a time. But I also know that my children are should be elementary in a way, so I'm thinking for the first time whether they like it or not, getting them to try new food is awesome. Proud of the food service program here in the Foxborough Public Schools. I'm happy to be the food service director leading a great staff. What I love most about my job is obviously the kids, because they can just be so funny and they're so honest that they will tell you whether if they don't like something, they will come right up and say, yeah, they can't have that. But when they do like something, that's like the best. When they come up and say, geez, Mrs. McHugh, that was really good. How did you make that? And then we've actually had to ask for recipes that we sent home with them. And so that's one of the best things. And the people that I work with. I have the best team. The staff here at the borough is great to work with. So it's I would say it all comes down to the people that I work with and the kids. They're the best. They're just the best. And that's what I love most about my job. It's a nice, economical, convenient benefit for parents, so I hope that parents would try it.
Yummy.
Very nicely done.
I think it certainly would inform some people who have some preconceived notions about school lunch based on our own experience back when. It's great. Kudos to all your food service people who were in the video. It's great.
I think that's one of those things that maybe with all of our focus on instruction and operations and budget and all that, you might tend to think we forget about the quality of the food, but absolutely not with this group. That's great.
The food looks fantastic, but I really wanted, thank you for showing the video and Bruce for putting it on the agenda again. I think it's great to see our food service personnel too, because they're back behind the lunch counter, and but they love what they do. They're great with our kids, and they're people our kids see every single day, and so we're really lucky to have such. And most of those people in that video have been with Foxborough Public Schools for years, and we're just really fortunate to have great people who work in our school system, in every single aspect. Our food services, our bus drivers, our custodians, our teachers, everyone. Top, all the way through.
Put that video on our homepage, on our website.
That would be awesome.
It is. It's on if you look on our main website, it's right there, food services right
But
there.
I mean as the main,
As the main.
for a while as the main video. I think it serves it. I think it'd be a good spot.
Yeah, I think a lot of kids especially like in high school, don't appreciate like how hard it is to make food like that for this many kids. Like I worked in a kitchen for the first time this summer for a summer camp where you have to get like 3 meals on the table, like for like 200 girls, and like that's really hard work. That was my first experience with that.
Point.
So now I have like this newfound appreciation for it, and it's so hard, especially with fresh produce like that. Like that's really difficult. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, like with the pizza. I work at
Yeah.
Tavolino's up at the stadium, so knowing how rough it can get on Pat's games, I could compare that to having to feed way too many kids in the school cafeteria. So I definitely have a new appreciation for what they do.
That's a great perspective, both of you.
So I think it would be good to have it on the, like you said, on the homepage, because kids just don't know.
Yeah, instead of having to go look for it to find it, and all for like $3
True.
or less, depending on your school. So that's pretty amazing.
I don't know how well it showed on TV, but just the actual ability or the image. My favorite image there is, Mrs. Rice cutting down fresh cucumbers and fresh lettuce and off the stalk and putting it onto the plate. I mean, that's not how it worked in school when I was there. Right? Yeah, that's great.
That's just the last few years, and we have Allison Johnson to thank for getting those towers in place to begin with, and in the PIP, the Partners in Patriotism, for giving us the grants in the first place. So we're very fortunate all around. But I agree.
Anything else? Okay. Well, we have a guest of honor here tonight who I noticed walked in a few minutes ago. So, Dr. Berdos, would you like to announce the next item on the agenda?
I would love to announce. So we're going to be introducing our incoming Assistant Superintendent, Miss Allison Mello. If you'd like to mosey on up to the table. So just as a little bit of a recap for those that may not have watched the last school committee meeting, we had a team of 13. We had 49 applicants for the assistant superintendent position, which really shows that Foxborough is a destination of choice. There's a lot of interest to be here. And at the end of that very long process, Allison was the selected candidate who you unanimously recommended at the last school committee meeting. She was not able to be here then, and she is able to be here with us tonight. Since that announcement, I cannot tell you how many people who have stopped me in schools, all 5 schools, with the overwhelming support of Allison to be the next assistant superintendent. And you can see that by the support, too, of all of the principals and Sanders Special Ed there in the background there. And it's just been really sentiments of excitement that it's going to continue all the great work that we've been doing. All of the comments about Allison and all the work that you have already done in your role as K-8 Math Science Curriculum Director has been outstanding, and that is what people have talked about. So if there has been any pause at all, it's only that she will not be in that role going forward because of all of the work that has been done. So she's here this evening. If you would like to expand on anything that you'd like to have the opportunity for questions that maybe we didn't ask her in her 2 interviews.
I can't imagine.
Well, Allison, first, I want to congratulate you.
Thank you, and thank you all for your support. I was live streaming.
I was hoping you were.
I was. I had surgery, so I couldn't be here, which I think is the first time in 9 years that I missed baselines and benchmarks. So I was really watching for that at first because, that's important.
Well,
so
it was a nice
thank you.
segue to your vote or our consensus approval of the decision, because the math scores, over the last number of years have done outstanding. And of course, that's where we recognize you from at that table, is all the times you've come and talked about all the creative initiatives you've been running and all the support you've been giving to our classroom teachers. And I think it was, about a 55-minute debate before we finally decided that Allison...
Maybe 55 seconds.
Okay, 55 seconds. Maybe I misspoke. We're delighted. Anyone have any questions or comments for Allison?
I don't have any questions, and also my own congratulations, and just to pile on to what Amy said, or Dr. Berto said, outside of the school buildings, I've had many comments inside the school buildings as well when I parent, even tonight at parent-teacher conferences, but I've had people stop me at the grocery store and the post office and other places around town just to say how excited they are that you're coming on board. And I've had emails and texts as well. So not just within the building and outside of the building as well. You're very well known, and it's very well anticipated. Your you're beginning January 1st as our assistant superintendent.
Which
So
isn't
it's
very
exciting.
far away.
No, it's not at all.
No, it is not.
Allison, maybe you could share why you were interested in this position.
That's a really interesting question, because people here probably know if they had asked me a year or two ago, I would have said I probably wasn't, because I wasn't aspiring to this role in any particular way. But as I've continued my education and as I've continued to learn here, it was in my cover letter, I talked about how even though I've learned a lot in my doctoral program and all my postgraduate work, the best learning I've done has been here with the students, with the parents, with the teachers, with the administrators, working with Debbie and Amy. Like, I couldn't have asked for a better training ground and a better community of support. And so when this opportunity came up, I figured if I'm going to try this anywhere, it would be here, because there's an incredible team and I love working with Amy and I love all the teachers and I love the relationships that I formed and the work that we're doing. And if it's not meant to be me, I knew a lot of other people would apply. So that's my attitude as I went into it. If I'm the best person and I come out and I can continue to work in this district, then I want to. And if not, then that's okay too. So it's exciting for me personally to expand my scope of my work. I've enjoyed working with the K-8 so much, and math and science. But I do sneak up to this high school every chance I get to see where the kids are, because once they leave, it's, I still like to see them. So I'm really excited about that. And to work in partnership with Amy, it's big shoes to fill, so I had to think about that too. Is that going to be, I really thought a lot about it before I applied. But I will say, to your comments as well, Tina, so many teachers and parents actually, when they heard about the opening, asked me if I would be applying. And that vote of support and the team behind me, a lot of people encouraged me to apply, and that sort of gave me the confidence to say, okay, I think I'm going to go for it. There's my long-winded, typical Allison answer.
Thorough, as all your work is.
Thank you.
I want to say to you, thank you for applying.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for accepting. And I highly approve of this hat change from Mrs. Marshmallow to the double dots. And I want you
Not
to
yet.
personally know that I consider this as an irrevocable trust.
Oh, thank you. Believe me, I am humbled and I am honored, and I know it's a big responsibility and I'm excited for it. So I'm so excited I get to stay in Foxborough, because there was going to come a point probably where I was going to do something different. So it's great that I can do it here where I love to be, with the people that I love and the kids and the families. And I even had people from the community business partners email me congratulations. I don't think that happens in every retired teachers, everyone from the transportation department, custodial department, administrators, teachers, assistants. It's been overwhelming. So that was very validating to know I'm in the right spot. Very blessed.
I think you just said something interesting too, Allison, that you weren't sure that your whole career or future would be here, but you're delighted that it can be. And I think we've been talking at this table, and I'll just reiterate, we've been fortunate that Amy's timing was such that we were able to retain her and promote her, and now exactly the same with you. We've been very fortunate that the timing has been such that we've been able to fulfill, I think, the growth opportunity you both earned in the timing before you left us. So we've been very, very lucky that way.
Thank you.
Share for viewers at home or those who haven't heard your educational background. You referred to it a minute ago, but just take us through that if you would.
So in my undergraduate, I studied psychology and elementary education, and that major in psychology actually has come in very handy over the years. I really enjoyed having that background. And did my master's in education at Bridgewater State, and I'm currently a doctoral candidate at Johnson & Wales University for curriculum instruction and assessment in educational leadership. So I'm working on my dissertation right now. If I'm fortunate enough to successfully defend it in April, then I will hopefully graduate in May, right before my kids graduate high school in June. So it's going to be an eventful spring in the Mello household. Yes, definitely.
Other questions or comments?
If you watched last time, I don't have to repeat everything I said.
I
I had
know.
notes and everything.
You
unless
did,
really
I
need
could
me
tell.
to. I need notes. So you know how I feel, and I'm very, very thrilled that you're coming up.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your support.
Always.
Congratulations.
Thank
I'm glad
you.
that we have somebody that knows our system very well, being promoted, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you bring.
Well, thank you.
And you probably heard Chris's comments if you were watching live stream, but I thought Chris's input was really valuable last meeting when we made the approval. That he offered from a teacher's perspective the thought of promoting from within and the value of that. And I thought, as someone who's not an educator, I thought that was really nicely said. So
It really was, and I appreciated that because I didn't really aspire to be the curriculum director either. And somebody really encouraged me. And I realized then that having all those relationships in place as a leader is really important. And it takes a long time to cultivate those relationships and to understand how a school works. How does the school committee feel about the work that you're doing? What kind of support is there? How do the administrators feel? So having that in place saves a lot of time, for sure, and it lets us just get to the work, which is what I'm a worker bee, and I like to work. Being out on leave has been really difficult for me. So I'm excited for all the things that are ahead. And I did appreciate all your comments. I was blushing as I was so glad I wasn't here, actually. It was nice to watch it from afar.
Amy, I interrupted you. Wanted to say something?
No, I just again, the support, even you talked about you would sneak up to the high school, and it's because of wanting to look systemically at when we look at curriculum and instruction and what our kids are doing and where they're going, and are we providing that support that's necessary from all of those realms. And Allison does that. I've had high school teachers that have stopped to me and said, I don't really know her, but I've heard such great things about her. So you have fans even at the high school that you don't even know.
Well, that's nice.
And it really speaks to, I think, that the reach that you've had. And it's not just in math and science. It's in so many other areas by what you've modeled and what you continue to show from the K-8, but it goes to the high school. And I would just like to say that I am super excited, although it's going to be,
I'm super excited.
with all of the changes, that I cannot think of a better person to have. The relationship that Debbie and I have and will continue to have, and the support, and how fortunate I've been to have that partnership. I'm just so thankful that 2 spots will be here, and then with all of the principals and Sandra there in the back supporting. We're really fortunate because it is a strong team with Mike and Michelle and Sue and Diana and Maura. We're very fortunate. So.
And I already told Debbie I'll be calling her all the time because the learning won't stop just because you're not sitting in that spot anymore.
I know.
So thank you.
I just couldn't be more at peace leaving things in such great hands. And I still remember when I came back 10 years ago as the assistant, my first year back, and I met Allison up at the middle school doing her busy bee thing. So she just said, and we had this conversation, and I had this aha moment, and I said, you should be a curriculum coordinator, curriculum director. Like, this is your. She said, no. But we didn't have an opening for it one at the time, so I quickly said, what am I saying? Like, I shouldn't be saying that too strong, but you really should. Like, you've got that it thing, you've that complete package. So here we are 10 years later, and I couldn't be prouder or more happy for you.
Well, thank you.
You deserve it.
Your support and tutelage have really been a big part of my development. So, and then Amy as well. So thank you all, and all of these people back there, because they're always teaching me stuff. So it's great. It's a great place to learn. So I know some parents out there have kids that are in college that are training to be teachers that went through Foxborough Public Schools, and I hope that they'll come back when they finish, because we have one in particular, math specialist, who went through these schools and has come back and has just continued to learn. It's really amazing. Special community.
I think we all agree with that, too. Yeah. I know I do.
Anything else for Allison? Maybe I'll just close then by saying that if I think about Debbie and Amy, and now you, Allison, there's some adjectives that come to mind for all 3 of you, but they're all the same. Professional, dedicated, thoughtful, energetic, and maybe most important from a school committee perspective, and those are all highly important, but we don't do everything right. As strong a district as we are and as much growth as we've seen in the last decade, in my opinion, and I think probably all of our opinion, we still don't do everything right. It's hard to do everything right all the time when you're dealing with so many people and so many decisions, but all 3 of you are very thoughtful. And I know that it was a 55-second discussion, as you saw. If that, probably a 5-second discussion. So I want to compliment all of you, and I just want to say that you guys are going to follow right in the mold, and we're very, very fortunate here in Foxborough.
Well, thank you. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank all the people who sat on the interview committee. It was quite a large committee. And it's really different to interview in the place where you live. So it actually made it, I think, almost a little bit harder because you want so much to impress them, but you don't want to sound like, oh, look at me. So that was really, I appreciate them and I appreciate the time. I know I've been on those committees, how much time it takes. So thank you to both Tina and Marilyn for participating.
Congratulations.
And thank you. Thank you for everything.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you.
All right, now we got to do some boring stuff.
Yeah.
Foxborough Public Schools strategies to prevent, boy, this was a long one when I read it earlier.
No.
To prevent and minimize racial, ethnic, cultural, religious, or gender bias and/or discrimination in our students and in our schools.
Yes, a very serious topic that deserves our serious attention. So our administrative team, I'm happy to see so many of them here for Allison tonight. It's good if they could just stay another minute and a half or two for this. We've been talking about this on and off at the administrative team for, about a year now. And things are changing in society. They're changing in our town. They're changing in our country and certainly in our state. And, we are seeing, just like, a few years ago, we started seeing an uptick in social emotional dysregulation, and then we decided, okay, we're going to have to do that. We're seeing some changes that so far in Foxborough are fairly subtle or sporadic, I guess I would describe it as. But, in the news lately, there have been some other school districts right close to us that have experienced some pretty public and pretty serious incidents related to racial, ethnic, cultural, religious, or other types of bias. So, we had been making these decisions this fall, and then when those school districts were in the news, it really hits home because it could happen anywhere. It could happen to us tomorrow. So our conversation was around, are we being proactive enough? We do a lot of community building. We do a lot of lessons, as you heard, for the social emotional program review. We do a lot with caring school communities, a lot with building classroom communities, cultural communities, respect for differences. We do a lot of those general underpinnings of the development of character and community. But what's happening in the world, certainly in our country recently, deserves a more specific, direct approach. We can't just say we do all this, foundational stuff, so hopefully that'll take care of it. And we've had some incidents related to this issue that, we've been challenged by. Exactly how do we handle that? Especially when the kids are young and they don't exactly know what they're saying. They're repeating a word or trying out a word that they've heard. We don't know where they're hearing it. It certainly isn't in school. And they're trying to use it. They're using it with other children. They're using it in a conversation. When they're that young, they don't always know what it means. They don't always know it's hurtful. And then when we get into kids that are a little bit older, who are also, repeating and trying out language that we would put in the category of bias or discrimination, what is our response? What is our obligation? And sometimes we talk here about, it's not our job to parent, so it's not our job to try to parent or to step in the role of a parent or to critique parental decisions. And I think that's the fine line for a school board and for school district leaders, is how do we help with an issue that we see without crossing the line into trying to parent or judging parents or blaming parents or the society or whatever's happening in the world where kids are exposed to things, without blaming social media, for example. So we've spent several administrative team meetings this fall discussing this and deciding to have a more direct approach to what we're doing, so that we could at least feel in our own minds, feel that we can say we are trying the best we can, and we're trying to deal with this, and we're trying to educate kids a little bit better in this specific area. And we don't want to say, well, our heads are in the sand, or we're looking the other way. We don't know how to handle it. So as you can see, one of the questions, and I want to credit one of our administrative team members, one of our principals came up with this essential question. I can't remember who was it. You, Mike? Mike. It was Mike Stanton, I believe, who, during one of those conversations over the last couple of months, gave this essential question you see there. What does it mean to be a good person in our community and in today's global society? And that really, everybody kind of went, that's it. That's the central question around we're going to form our plans. So not just say, well, we're doing a little bit here, we're doing a little bit there, we're doing a little of this. What does it all mean? What's the whole purpose? And we have curriculum based around essential questions that we plan backwards from. So we're going to do the same in this effort. So that's really what we're struggling with, is what does it mean to be a good person, to raise a good person in our community and in today's global society. So what we have done is we've developed our own internal Foxborough Public School plans and strategies. Our purpose is to directly address racial, ethnic, cultural, religious, gender, size bias, any other type of bias or discrimination that kids could be exposed to, whether they're exposed to it in school, out of school, on social media. And so I just want to go over some of the notes to show the community and show the committee that we're being very proactive, and direct. So what are we going to do? We have plans in a few different segments. So the first the first part of the plan is how to address these issues generally with students in the general population in all of our schools, K through 12. And that really means like a tier 1 program. So what do we do to help kids grow as in social emotional one? What do we help them grow as math learners, as literacy learners? So what is everybody getting that should take care of most of it and that should prevent problems from arising? That's what tier 1 really is. It's everybody gets it, general population. Hopefully it speaks to prevention. And the topics that we came up with for all of our schools and students K to 12, and also to benefit staff who are handling these issues as well, is first of all to develop a sense of community and create welcoming schools. We think we do that already, but we could do more in terms of helping kids to find a welcoming school, not just as a friendly place, but as a place free of bias and discrimination and remarks around that. The development of empathy. We all know what that means, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, being able to understand how that person thinks or feels and the effect something might have on them. Understanding differences of all kinds. Religious differences, cultural, racial, ethnic, gender, socioeconomic differences. That's a reality here in Foxborough as well. Size difference, it could be appearance differences, any kind of differences that you'd see in the population. And the last being media literacy. What messages are kids seeing and hearing in the media that we need to plan for and try to counteract? There are a lot of messages in the media that we can't control. And the words matter. So what you see and hear does influence you, and your own words matter too that you're using on social media. So those lessons will be delivered in regular classrooms or through the guidance curriculum, through our guidance staff. So how we deliver it is separate from what we plan to deliver. Tier 2 really is a set of lessons and processes that we're going to use to address specific incidents. So if a student reports that somebody said X or Y, and they were offended, or it was discriminatory remark, or whatever it is, or they say that this happened on the bus, or they say this is what's happening to them out of school, it could be anything. How are we going to address specific incidents? So we're going to put together basically a protocol. And our goal is a deeper understanding of the words we use or the actions we choose that promote stereotypes or that demonstrate racial, ethnic, or religious bias and or discrimination. We want to include in that protocol for addressing specific incidents or reports. That assuming that we will investigate it, like any incident that's reported, we would investigate it, and assuming that it was found to be factual and that it did indeed occur, because as we all know, there are also false reports of physical harm. There's false, we never know. So we always investigate everything that's reported. As a part of that, we want to create the term that's used a lot now is restorative justice. That's typically been used in the criminal court system. Restorative justice, if you've committed a crime against a person, how do you restore what you basically owe that person for them being a victim of your crime. But it could also be called restorative practices. So how are we going to repair harm when an incident occurs? So if you're a student in our schools and an incident or a slur or discriminatory act is made against you and is investigated and is found to have happened, how are we going to restore justice to you as a valued individual and member of our community? So that's an important part. And of course, these actions are separate from and in addition to specific consequences or discipline procedures that may also be applied that everyone should know according to the student parent handbook that's relevant to the school, elementary or middle or high school. So it doesn't mean we're going to just all talk about how to be nice. There's still going to be discipline procedures because the student parent handbook is the covenant. It is what happens. It is what should happen. So everybody needs to rely on the procedures that are outlined in the handbook are going to happen. That's why they're written down, so people don't think anything is personal or individualized or unfair. So that will still happen, but we need to do better than just have a consequence for actions. We need to look at how we're going to address it so that there's better understanding amongst people. So it's not just that someone has said or done something and they have a consequence because of it. It's how does that person understand the effects of what they chose to do so that they won't do it again and they become a more positive member of the community. So that's 2 parts of part 1, if you will. We want to also address some topics or issues with staff in terms of, for all of our staff, how do we put visibility to the effort? How do our faculty and staff support this important topic? Because it is, you remember years ago when we started our plans about 5 or 6 years ago to address child sexual abuse, it was an uncomfortable topic. And so we had to become comfortable talking about it through training, through lessons. We had to get comfortable with an uncomfortable thing. This is an uncomfortable thing, and we're going to have to do the same thing again. Get comfortable with something that's completely and entirely uncomfortable to talk about and to act on. So in terms of staff, how do they put visibility and support sensitivity to all of those types of differences and biases or discriminatory thought processes that might exist? What about the assumptions we make and the words that we use on the adult level, and how does it affect us as classroom as educators in the classroom? And when sensitive issues do come up in the classroom related to these things, how do you talk about it with students? Is it okay? We're at the basic level. Is it okay to talk about it with kids if you overhear something? And if so, what's right? What's the best way to approach it? It's so sensitive that we don't want to make a mistake ourselves and compound the issue. So right now, it really is a critical issue for educators, especially with everything that's happened in the news, is how do I intervene and how do I respond when I overhear or when something happens or I'm told something, it's reported to me. So we need to make that very, very concrete so that the staff has a guideline for if something happens, this is how we want it handled. And then the last part is community outreach. How do we reach out to the community and provide education and support around all these same topics? How do we explain to them what we're trying to do? How do we explain our role with them as partners, with parents and in the community for this? And to remember that adults in the community are role models for our students in terms of awareness and sensitivity to these types of differences. And I personally have become more concerned about that because with the advent of social media, there's some things on social media I'm very uncomfortable with on the adult level. So here we are, the role models, to teaching our kids, what you do on social media is your brand, your people are going to judge you on that. And I think that sometimes the adult role models have forgotten that. We have a lot of bystanders on social media that are the adults, yet we're in the classroom telling kids, don't be a bystander, and we're being bystanders ourselves. So there's so much around us engaging adults in the community to help us be good role models for our kids who are growing up and navigating a world that we didn't have to and that we don't fully understand because we don't experience it as students as they are. And to do all these things, we've actually been to several things. A few of our staff members went to a wonderful workshop at Holy Cross about confronting hate in schools and bias and hate. 5 of us went to one at Bridgewater State University on the same topic. And we have lots of resources so we have almost a half-page list of resources that right now we're going to go back to our next meeting. We're researching all the resources to decide what we want to pull from. Resources like tolerance.org, it's called Teaching Tolerance. They are rich with resources on teaching tolerance. And actually we just ordered, they have an administrator's guidebook, if you will. So I just ordered multiple copies of that so we can all have, a reference right there, never mind the lessons. So we need to spend the next few months pulling together all of these things and come up with a definite plan of what lessons, how do the lessons look, for example, understanding differences. What does it look like K to 2? What does it look like 3 to 4? What does it look like in the middle school? What does it look like in the high school? And that's what we're working on now is the specifics around these things. Hard topic.
Teaching Tolerance is an excellent resource.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are just loaded with materials, with resources. But we have several really good resources from the 2 workshops as well, and there are experts out there that are doing this work, and probably busier than ever right now. So I don't want people to have a false sense of security just because we're actively talking about it and working on it. Doesn't mean it won't happen here in Foxborough. We know it's already happened actually in our community a few months ago in the summer. It was in the paper. It happened to an adult in our community. So we are seeing an uptick of these things, and we want to be prepared. Right, Principal?
Comments?
Ma'am, I think it's great that we're being proactive and thinking along these lines and trying to come up with a plan, to address all of these really important issues. Thinking about what you've laid out here in our discussion at our last meeting about social emotional learning, and I think you used the term skill deficits. So I'm just connecting those dots. It sounds like possibly the skill we're looking at addressing another skill deficit, or possibly a skill deficit. And no, it's a term of art, but try to give people tools to deal with situations.
I'm going to say it's partially.
Yeah.
Because a skill deficit, for example, calming myself down when somebody challenges me or I'm frustrated by the work, that's a skill deficit if I don't have the skills to do it. I think, I'm just going to speak for myself, and I would really love it if some of our principals want to weigh in. I don't feel this is always a skill deficit. I think these are almost outside influences that are being experimented with, and belief systems that are coming from outside influences, not in school, that are being evidenced in behavior. So I think it could be for some kids. I think your point is valid. For some kids it is. Who may lack a filter, for example. I think we're nodding. We know some kids that for whom we would probably view it that way. But I think in other cases, I'm not so sure. I mean, when you look at what's been in the news lately with the high school, I think some of them are decisions that.
I didn't mean to suggest otherwise.
So I think that's exactly the point, though.
Yeah.
Every incident has to be looked at in its isolation and said, what's going on here? I mean, when they're really, really young kids and somebody's repeating a word, and that is certainly a developmental opportunity to learn. But I think it's a lot of things that we don't fully understand yet.
Yeah.
Do you think?
I do. I mean, talking about songs and rap songs, and students are singing those, and some of them don't know the words that they're singing that are there. I think it's another example of us having to think about what's coming before us in schools, and not to be reactive and to be proactive is really the point here. And thinking, how can we best set up our students and our educators for success?
Other comments?
So if the influence that we're talking about is coming from like the home or not in school, wouldn't it be like reaching out to parents as well? And how would you do that? Would you hold workshops for parents? Because I feel like that's a really, home life is so intrinsic to somebody's development.
I think that's a good point, Kendall. I think in the past, I'll tell you what I'm afraid of, and obviously it won't be my responsibility. Although we could try it in December, I'll be willing to tackle that while I'm still here for part 1, because it's not going to be a single thing. I think my fear is that we're going to experience what we have in the past when we were in workshops for how to protect your child from social media, that we tend to get the parents who probably don't need the message.
Right.
And then we don't get the parents who really need the message. So I predict that this is probably another one of those, so it's probably going to take multiple types of outreach with, a lot of fortitude and a lot of perseverance to get to it, because I agree with you.
Yeah. It's just I think that it gets easier and harder as kids get older, because it's easier for a kid to take ownership over what they say and what they do as they head on into high school and to the upper levels, but then also the exposure to what that influence could be probably becomes more profound, because you're listening to more rap music as you get older. So yeah, it's a difficult thing. I think in Foxborough, I don't hear too much about it, but I think that's the scary thing. I don't hear it in the halls, but I'm sure there are students who feel a certain way, and that's scary that you don't notice it, because there is somebody feeling that
I
way.
think there are students who have experienced hurtful remarks that are built that come from bias or stereotypical understanding. There are.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't think we've had as many as other schools, but one is too many.
Yeah, right.
So I think, I know that we have had that. So we're gonna try to be a little bit more direct. It's almost like we can do all the stuff we've been doing and say, you know, we think we're doing a lot, but this almost requires a calling it out, you know, a very, very specific.
Yeah.
And I think I said at another meeting, I can't remember, but when we went to the workshop on transgender students recently, Amy and I, the person who does the training at the state level for that, who's come here and done our training for transgender students, who is very good. He's got a new mantra. I've got to call him and say, where did you get that? Can I steal it, or is it copyrighted or something? But he said out loud a new mantra, which I really liked, which is stop it, name it, and claim. Stop it, name it, claim it, which is kind of snappy to remember. So if you see something along these lines or related to anybody, you stop it. You name it, like what you're doing is, making a racially discriminatory remark, or however you want to say it. I mean, I don't think kids would use those words, but stop it, name it for what it is, and then claim it is tell them why it's not okay with you, or why it's not okay in our community or in society. So I think if we can adopt something that's catchy like that, like we have you see something, say something around bullying or harassment, I think we have a better chance of getting everybody on board to remember that that they have an individual obligation to stop it, name it, and claim it. So, I mean, we'll see. I think it's going to be hard work for a while, and you know, but it was too important to ignore. And I think we all started to experience a fairly high level of discomfort with what was going on, not mainly locally, but certainly locally and certainly in the world. So I certainly started to get very uncomfortable with not feeling entirely prepared for it.
I always appreciate you sharing what you're doing with your administrative team meetings, so thank you for that. Well, how did you get started on this topic? What was, I know you said Mike had the idea or phrased the question the right way, but
how did we start on the topic? Okay, so at the end of the last school year, in you know, total honesty, we had a report of an incident at the elementary level and one at the high school. That, and possibly one at the middle, I think. No, more elementary and high school at the time, the ones that are coming to mind. And so in my mind, we ended the school year with, we've got this problem with young kids who don't really know what they're saying, but they're saying something that's not right. And anybody would object to if an adult overheard the word. And then we had, you know, something at the high school more along the lines of religious discrimination and bias. And more racial at the young, so different types of bias. And it just left me with, oh boy, things are happening. Things are perking, and we need to be prepared. And then the school year started, and we felt the same way. We all started feeling the same way. We had another comment at the elementary level of a kid that I don't think they know what they were doing or saying, but it was, yet again, we've never, in my 10 years here, I never experienced, like twice within a short period of time, little kids experimenting with words that I've never ever heard here in this community. So I think that's what did it for me, really, is those two things together. The end of the school year and then coming back and saying, nope, still there. So here we are. So I think we need to do our part to try to address it. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but at least we want to say we're preparing the best we can for things we don't fully understand or know where they're coming from.
Other comments?
I like that you're being proactive in this issue, and I also like that you're giving the teachers the tools to, you know, the resources for it, which is really important, because that way they're not overstepping their line.
Right.
Because it is that parent, teacher, you know, what can you say, especially if it's in a whole classroom. Right. And it's being addressed at the time, so they do need those resources and tools, I believe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
So I
I
like
think
that part of
Diana's
it.
been very helpful in saying, you know, we do have staff members struggling with if they overhear something, what are they supposed to do? What do we
Right.
want them to do?
You don't want them to overstep that.
Yeah.
It's a very fine line. That's tough.
It is.
Anything else? I just echo the comments. I am pleased and impressed that you are taking this up, because this is not easy stuff.
No.
But I think your sense that things are going on in society that we have to deal with as schools is thought leading and responsible and probably not easy.
No, very hard.
you know, maybe we need someone who's going to retire who could lead something like this.
Like a task force.
Like a,
You know, I probably would do
They
it.
need things to do in their free time,
just,
right?
you know, there'd be a vacuum of,
That's what I'm saying.
Somebody looking for something to fill up some time.
I don't know.
But I probably would. But you know what it is, Bruce? It's like, it's one of those things that was, you know, I feel like I'm pretty leaving with a lot of ends tied up. Look at our great team. But there was just a couple of things that are nagging at me, like that I don't feel good about myself if I leave this amazing team that I work with a real big problem that where we haven't at least started on the road. I just couldn't live with myself really to go, well, good luck, you know. Let's just hope nothing happens before January and you got a problem. I just can't, I'm just not that person. So here we are, right, people? And it's been difficult for us to discuss it, actually, as a team. It's not easy.
Well, when Bruce was talking about Allison coming on board, the word thoughtful came up more than once, and I think this is an example of thoughtful and something that perhaps we can be doing more on, just as Bruce said before, and why, you know, we all give you the credit that we do. So I look forward to seeing how this moves forward, and I do think it's great and very thoughtful.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting to get a readout toward the end of the year of what you've done
Yes,
with this.
Absolutely.
Because it's
More information.
good. Thank you for sharing, Debbie. That's great.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned.
Okay, transfer of Ms. Spinelli's board/committee appointments to incoming superintendent Dr. Burdos.
Bye, fabulous people.
Good night,
Thanksgiving,
audience.
fabulous people.
Happy Thanksgiving, audience.
Nice to see you, Olivia. You're taller than your mom.
Well, the next one is happy for me. So basically, there's two things that the school committee appoints me to that there are other things that I sit on, but they're either, the role is by charter, for example, CIP. It just says the superintendent of schools, so there's other things you don't have to transfer. It's just the position is named, not the person. But there are these two things that the person is named. So my appointment by you as the Bi-County Collaborative Board of Directors and my appointment by you to the PCC Board of Directors must be transferred to Dr. Burdos effective January 1st.
I don't see any reason why we couldn't take those together as a single motion, if anybody would like to make one.
I move that we transfer Mrs. Spinelli's board committee appointments to incoming superintendent Dr. Berdos effective January 1st for the Bi-County Collaborative Board of Directors and the Project Contemporary Competitiveness PCC Board of Directors.
I second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you, Debbie, for bringing that to our attention. That was a good housekeeping item.
Helps
And-
me with my changes and plans.
And a little transition. I can just picture her in her office.
So does the next item.
So here we go.
Take it away.
Bill, I'll let Bill take it away.
Bill, take it away.
So as you know, with the MSBA for the Borough project, has a kind of a set of rules that you need to follow through the process. We have an 18-member board that represents the town at this point. 9 members are the town's building committee, and then the other 9 members are town officials, superintendents, that thing. And in this particular case for the MSBA, the superintendent is the one that signs off on documents, as well as the chairman of the committee and the town manager. So you need to take a formal vote to basically transfer Amy's authority into, on January 1st, the MSBA as well, which I would then send in to them along with a revised list of who the new committee is. At that point, we will also put Allison in replacement effectively for Amy in her position on that committee as well. And everything else should stay the same. But they need an official vote from you that basically says you recognize this change.
Bill, I just had a question on the memo in our package on this topic. There were 2 different paragraphs. It sounded to me like almost 2 different motions potentially, or maybe it only needs to be one, but the first talked about recommending that we vote Amy authorized to act for and on behalf of the town, et cetera, and then the next paragraph also that the superintendent of schools, Amy, hereby further authorized to act in connection with, et cetera, et cetera. Is it one motion that you?
It's actually one motion. It's really that middle paragraph that
Okay.
you're really voting.
Okay. So it sounds pretty straightforward. Anyone have any questions for Bill? Care to make a motion?
I'd like to move to authorize Dr. Amy Burdos to act for and on behalf, or do you want me to read that one?
Yeah,
Or do you want me to read from the blue paper or the white sheet, does it matter?
Either one.
Okay. Of the town of Foxborough for the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, on the borough renovation project effective January 1st, 2018.
Chris,
I'll
did you want a
second.
second? Okay, Bev, second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Mr. Yukna, budget update.
Actually, very quick. We've been going through all the payroll, which is the big changes at this point, very little on the expense side. As you know, we had another healthy year of retirements. This is the second in a row. Much more than what we would have anticipated based on where people sat on the scales. Meaning that, you know, if you're somebody who has taught for 35 years, it's not unexpected that you might retire, but when you get a whole group that might retire from 25 years to the 35 years, it's a little unusual. And we've had 2 years in a row now, we've had some pretty significant retirements. We had 3 totally unexpected at the very end of the year, which actually gave us a much bigger kick. So all I'm recognizing in this particular budget, but in the next one you'll see additional ones, are the 3 larger ones that were on the physical ed, health and wellness side of things, because we know those are in excess of the $125,000 that we need to make up as part of the budget process. Unfortunately, we also are losing some of our grants as well. So while we're saving a few dollars, I think you'll see in here we're saving about $36,000. We're losing about $24,000, $25,000 in the grant side of things from what we can tell at this point. Hopefully one of them may turn around, but as you've known over the last couple of years, we have tend to lose more grants from the federal and the state than gain anything. We lost the kindergarten one, which was a $55,000 one last year. So it's a continual process here. So we're not really getting much of a gain out of these 2 minor changes at this point, but I do expect to have a little bit more positive number on the salary side in our next update. I will also caution you, though, we do have already some significant issues that we're going to have to address. We do have a 1999 pickup truck, the last of our old vehicles, 18 years old. I guess it's time. The mechanics aren't too excited about trying to keep it on the road, and quite honestly, I don't really think it should be on the road. So we'll be looking at that. We were fortunate enough with last year's funds to be able to make some adjustments and do the IGO schools boiler system. But I will also tell you that I have the same concern on the Taylor School that we did there. So
The boiler system?
Yes, the boiler system there is also, it's an original. So these are 2 very old systems. They are, the IGO has been renovated in the not too distant past, so it's not going to be something we're coming back to quickly on. So by addressing it last year, I think we saved ourselves a potential problem, but I want to also not be in that boat for the Taylor. Obviously, we're in the process with the borough, so hopefully we can last long enough at the borough to also manage through the MSBA process. So there's a list of some bigger items. I think I want to make sure that we're all very transparent on this side of things. We look at our budget as a total number to deal with all of our own issues. As you know, we don't go back to special town meetings asking for money to do projects. If something goes wrong, we have to figure out within our own budget. Not that we have to, but we've always taken that tact that, we have a large budget. We can make adjustments within our budget to make things work. Sometimes we're fortunate that it's just events that happen that give us those resources, and sometimes it's really the fact that we've had to cut back on doing something that we'd hoped to do to make those adjustments work. So our budget, even with its size, everybody says you can find money. Most of our budget, over 80% of it's salaries, which are contractual. So the only real advantages you get on the salary side of things, again, is if you have more retirements, potentially more people who go out on an extended maternity leave, in which case you are replacing them with a long-term sub, which is obviously a less expensive thing after the 8-week period. So there are adjustments that way to create revenue or funding availability. On the expense side, we spend our money through, and We have a very tight budget for maintenance, which is good enough to keep us on an annual basis, but it's not good enough to manage large expenditures that have to happen over a period of time. And we've always used those slack years when we have a little bit of extra money to do something to address those major issues, and therefore not have to come back to the town and not have to be reactive. You know, we're trying to be proactive on those things to stop a problem from happening. So I think I hope the taxpayers realize that that's how we manage our budget and that's how we go through this process. A little long-winded on this, but I really want to make that point because I think it's very important.
I think that is a PR issue, though, for us, is that we have the support and the encouragement from the town management, from the town manager and the town finance director, to do it this way. To say, you know, it's not good to go back to the town for money, which is typically how it's done, is that you go back for a special town meeting and say, we had to get the boilers, so give us, you know, the money that will pay for that. And that's not a good way of doing business. So it is with their support and encouragement that we manage our needs. So if we can cobble together some money from some expense saving that will postpone and some long-term subs for either maternity or we hired for unexpected retirements, if we can cobble together the money and get our business done, that is what they want us to do, to manage within ourselves. But I think it's not well understood in the community, or sometimes even on the finance, you know, at the finance committee level. So I think that's an important point to make next spring at the or late winter at the finance committee, is to say, this is the expectation. And if the community has a different expectation, then let us know. But otherwise, we're going to keep operating on that assumption.
For the PR part, for the strategic planning, you know, Bill and I's group, we was suggested that the chairperson go on local cable and discuss the budget.
Oh, thanks.
And I know that was
What a good subcommittee of
our
the strategic planning committee.
strategic planning section.
Surprise, Bruce.
That's fine.
But, and I think to Deb's point, I'll give you a perfect example. We all know that we use the Hearn Middle School during the summertime to run our programs because it's the only building that's air conditioned within the district. So, but it has very, very large air conditioning systems that were put in 2001. Last year, just as the summer was coming on, one of the units basically went south on us. And the choice was one of two things. $150,000 cost to replace that single unit, we have two of those, or replace the compressor that was in there for $50,000. I called right up into the town and said, Randy, here's the point. I'm going to either give you back $123,000 or I'm going to keep the 50 and fix this thing now and give you back $78,000. He said, well, fix the machine. You got to fix it. So I think that's the tack that we try to take. We're not trying to do anything behind the doors. We're trying to be very transparent about it, but it would have made no sense because we could never have reacted and had a town meeting fast enough to get that funding to fix it so that we could use it for the summer. We were able to fix it and use it during the summer by just doing it through our budget process. So,
And as another example, we talk about this all the time. So we had three unexpected retirements the last week of school that people are just so quiet about it. And so we hopefully will be able to cobble some money. If they can cobble some money together at the end of the school year, and we can do something about the boilers at Taylor if the condition continues to deteriorate, I think the community would prefer that. If we can do it, we can't always do it in a year. We prefer that to knowing it's a problem and waiting for the following winter and having the boilers go when when it's cold out and the kids are in an unheated school, and now where are you going to put them in different classes somewhere else? What are you going to do? So we've always had a very proactive, preventative approach. If we can do on larger maintenance things, you know, in any year we can do it, we will. There are some years we couldn't.
Right.
So
there's many years that, quite
many
honestly,
years that
we
can't.
use just our budget to survive.
Right.
And quite honestly, because we are proactive on a regular basis, a lot of times you can make it a few years without really having to do anything, and that's the whole hope. That's the point of spending the money the way you spend it, is to basically to always give you that cushion. But you know, again, we are not part of the town when it comes to paving. We have a lot of parking lots, a lot of roadways, a lot of stuff like that. So, and you don't see in our budget, an annual paving budget, right? But fortunately, over the last few years, again, with some extra money, we were able to do sections of parking lots, sections of roadways that we have control over, working with the DPW. I will say they are excellent to use their surge bidding and stuff, which is phenomenally better than we could ever do ourselves on going out there. But it's that type of stuff that I think a lot of people think we just get, it's the town doing it. And it, it's them helping us, but we're having to come up with the funding to do it.
So the opposite choice, either we do the paving when we can, or we have a regular paving budget of like $100,000 every year that you see in there every year, and people are like, why are you doing so much paving? So we don't put regular things like that in the budget, knowing that if we can try to keep up, we will. So I think that's and the same with maintenance. If we'd have to really increase the maintenance budget that we could depend on regularly, if this philosophy wasn't agreed upon by everybody. I think the important thing is it is agreed upon by everybody, but it's not well understood, so it's easily criticized. Where we've heard, like, why did you underspend your salaries and overspend your expenses? So this is why it can appear that way, but it didn't mean we did. It didn't mean that we planned it that way. It's that the salaries were under due to unexpected things well after the budget was done, often 6 months after, and we had an opportunity to do it. And I think you want Bill to continue that way.
Is the surprise retirements, is that an annual thing? Is that normal?
The last couple of years, we've had significantly higher than we would have ever anticipated by looking at, I remember actually just 3 years ago looking at the schedule and telling this board I was concerned whether or not we could make up the 125,000.
Right.
But then again, having people retire after 20, 25, or 30 years when you wouldn't normally expect them to.
Is there no incentive program for?
No, there's no incentive.
Is that something that you've ever
That's not,
considered?
you know what, that's actually, that was ruled out of the law a few years ago.
Right.
When I was in the other community I worked with until 10 years ago, that was still part of the law, that you could, if people told us early enough, they could get a financial incentive in their last 3 years. I think it was called the Lexington Plan, but that's actually not legal anymore. So you can't do that anymore. It was
So they're grandfathered in?
the people who are already in the Lexington Plan, but that was a good 6-7 years ago.
I think that's pretty
8,
exhausted
9,
at this
maybe,
point, yeah.
maybe almost like 10 years ago. It was districts can't do that anymore. What that did was help districts predict their salaries, and their salary implications over the next few years, and incentivize people to retire. But it was ruled illegal by the court about 8 to 10 years ago. So that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah.
I'm not sure really why you want to pay someone to leave, earlier, or just to know when they're going to leave. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So,
It just makes it easier for planning, knowing that people are retiring. And
it does. And again, we will hit the year that we don't have enough to make up the 125. But at least that will be explainable, and we'll have to figure out a way to get through it and go from there. So
It was a budget management strategy that it was questioned even when it was in existence, but it didn't last long.
Other comments? I have a few. I always like to save mine for last. Give everybody else a chance to speak equally. I don't know if someone has questioned our budget recently, and that's why the business manager and superintendent are commenting, or if this is in anticipation of the business season. I hope it's the latter, not the former. I don't have any question or confusion as to the appropriateness of the public scrutinizing our budget. I think they should. The only time I get upset is when people do it in the press before coming to the committee. We have a budget subcommittee on this school committee who are available for a conversation. We have a business manager and a superintendent who are available for conversation. We scrutinize our budget. We are elected by the town to scrutinize our budget and set budget as one of our main priorities. And anyone who knows Bill Yukna, and who was just applauded this past week at another school, another town facility finalization or product from his budget work and his planning work. I mean, there's complete credibility and transparency, and maybe it's just that the public can't see everything we see in these budget reports, but I have no qualms personally with the approach we've been on. We always look to Bill's discretion and direction, and Bill Keegan and Randy and all the appropriate town officials. I can't imagine much more transparency or proper approach than what goes on. So I appreciate the explanation, Bill, and I invite the public to continue to question, but come to us and ask perspective. That's the only time I get upset, is when I get my old traditional newspaper on Thursday and read it and see comments about what was the school committee thinking. Well, we'd be glad to have you come and ask.
Absolutely. Any of us would. Any of you would. Any of us would.
So
I think partially it's that people tend to live in sound bites now.
Yeah.
And without really taking the time to ask the questions, and I
Or
agree.
finding the facts.
We would much appreciate the conversation rather than everybody just repeat a sound bite that sounds like something that could be made something, but it really isn't. So we've always been very transparent. We can explain anything at all that's happened in the budget or the whys and wherefores. Any of you could, and any of us could. So I think that's a great invitation that you just extended for people to do that.
I mean, we don't take it lightly, this responsibility. It is a lot of money, right? We know that. And we're all taxpayers. I always say that.
That's what I was going to say. We're all taxpayers
We're all
ourselves.
taxpayers.
We don't agree
and we've got
blindly.
established metrics, right, for people who pay attention. We're not going to spend a whole lot more than the state average on per pupil, but we're going to get the most bang for our buck. And we've got a really talented team here that helps us do that. So, Bill, keep doing what you're doing.
Okay.
I'm glad you said that, Bruce.
Yeah, very well said.
Okay, so we have a budget statement in front of us. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the November 15th budget statement?
I'll make a motion to approve the November 15th budget statement as presented by Mr. Euclid.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Joe, did you have a question?
No.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Acceptance of donation, Partners in Patriotism Fund.
Yes, so as the committee well knows, we are in the process of reinstating our high school musical. So the group that is starting to fundraise for it, what we hope will be our future theater boosters, I don't know what else to call them, our hopeful future theater boosters, have applied to the Partners in Patriotism for some funding assistance. So they have, the PIP fund has generously voted to donate $5,000 to the musical theater program. Right now, it says Scott Walker, who's our middle school English teacher, who will eventually be taking over the high school musical after this year. He's committed for this year, and he's unsure of why. Maybe he helped him apply. He's very involved with helping, even though he can't do it. So anyway, so what this will do, if you remember our plan for musical theater, this will reduce the $14,000 in rent. For the Orpheum, where we're going to have it. So it will help reduce the load that the theater boosters would have to raise. So that's what it will be going specifically toward.
$14K?
Yes.
For rent.
Correct. So it's only fair. They've applied for it. The schools didn't apply for this grant. Our loose booster group, whatever you want to call it, whatever loosely titled, did in some way, shape, or form. We very much appreciate that the community is starting to step forward to help us with this, and they have extreme interest in helping this go well. So that's going. It has to come to us because we'll be paying the rental, but this will actually reduce their obligation, and then the rest of it we have accounted for in ticket sales or our own commitment to pay a couple of the stipends.
Great.
So wonderful. Thank you to the people who applied. And I don't know who applied, so
But
I
thank
only
you.
got the email from Scott Walker that said, who should this check go to? I said, well, I guess it's made up to Foxborough Public Schools, but note that the people who applied will go to reducing their commitment,
Yeah.
as it should.
Earmarked.
Yes,
We've had
earmarked.
several other student and parent groups apply on behalf of DECA comes to mind, and other organizations here to the PIP. So, and they've been very generous with school-related activities and supported our students in many different ways. And this is a great donation, and I love that our kids are going to be at the Orpheum because it's the Orpheum. I think Mr. Hickey is doing a great job in reviving the Orpheum and tying that to the community, and I think it's very exciting to have our high school students performing there.
True.
And it does
Good
solve.
idea somebody had, Tina.
Thank you.
Hey, credit where credit is due.
Well, I'm glad to see this moving forward. I know there are a lot of very excited people to see what the next steps are, and
Great.
this is a great movement forward right
Yeah.
here.
In
so.
case people are wondering, it has been shifted from a March date to a June date. And that was only the boosters planning with Jared Craig, with Scott Walker, and with Diana at the high school. And the theater advisor at the high school, Alyssa Machanak, was very involved. They just felt that it was too close to the the competitive theater that some of the kids are interested in. So I think it will end up interfering with some other kids' spring activities, but as we've learned, there's no good time of year where kids aren't already overcommitted and want to do everything. So it's going to be a June, I believe it's 8th performance at the Orpheum. So just so people know, expect it'll be a nice end of the year.
Great.
Do they know what show yet?
No.
No, they don't. Not that I know of. I just
they
talked to
don't. They
Mr.
have
Craig
to-
last week, and he hadn't selected a
No,
show.
what they have to do is have a preliminary meeting, because everybody knows that spring brings new opportunities for commitments and your favorite things to do. So you can't say, this is the name of the show and want 40 kids in it, or this is the name of the musical and have a small musical. If 8 kids show up for a small, with 40 cast
Yeah.
for 40. So they need to poll the interest to pick the correct size of music.
That's true. And the kids are involved in that too, so I think it's great.
Right.
Because they know what will fly and what people want to go to. So we're relying on our experts, our young experts. It's good. I'm excited about it.
Anybody want to move to accept?
Oh, I'll move to accept the donation from the Partners in Patriotism Fund of $5,000 to the Foxborough Public Schools for our music theater program.
I'll second.
Appropriate? Any further discussion?
With gratitude?
Yes, with
All
much
those-
gratitude.
Obviously with gratitude. With
All
much
those in favor?
gratitude.
Thank you very much.
You can even sing it.
Partners in Patriotism.
You can sing it. I'm not going to sing it. Nobody wants to hear me sing.
Other matters. I'm going to start the other side this time. Janet, any other matters?
Not at this time? Nope.
No, we have some ethics compliance training we still, at least I still have to do.
Some of you do.
Yes.
Some
Yes.
of you do.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, duly noted. See, I haven't just.
We know who we are.
Okay, all right. And do we owe you anything else? Not that I can think of. Bill?
Nope, I'm good.
Congratulations again on Town Hall.
I know. 15 years in planning and 15 months for construction. I love it.
Marilyn?
I'm good. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Nice. Chris?
Good luck to our football team on Thanksgiving and all the people trying out for winter sports on Monday.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
What's your
exciting.
What's your schedule like this week at school?
I have school today, I have school tomorrow, and then that's it for the week.
Oh.
Good for you.
Wish I had the half-day Wednesday.
Amy?
Just a happy Thanksgiving and safe travels for everyone that's traveling.
Debbie?
Happy Thanksgiving. I already started my cooking. Tomorrow is Career Day at
Yes.
Foxborough High School. It happens every other year for our juniors and seniors.
Tuesday.
It is a yeoman's bit of work by Ellen Pillsbury, our fabulous career specialist who works like a dog and really gets the whole thing organized and gets many people to participate. And this year she's particularly proud of having so many Foxborough High School graduates presenting, among them proud mother, my own 2 children, who are doing
That's
law
exciting.
and physical therapy. So but I had nothing to do with it. They were voluntold by Mrs. Pillsbury, as most of us are. And it'll be a great morning tomorrow for kids to learn about potential careers from real people that they can relate to. Looking forward to it.
Anything else, Debbie?
Probably, but they're in Tina's brain as usual.
You want to do that? Want to talk about it?
Oh, I would love to. Shall we do that last after?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So,
This is great.
So I think it's been distributed to the board by Mike Weber from Foxborough Cable Access. I hope it's been distributed to all the volunteers, but it was on your behalf, Foxborough School Committee, it was truly my pleasure to be the ambassador, to be able to call Mike Weber and to go visit him at Foxborough Cable Access with the wonderful news that per your nomination, and our nomination, it is our pleasure to let Mike know that Foxborough Cable Access has been selected to receive the 2017 Outstanding School Partner Award from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, MASC, which is your professional organization. And together we nominated Foxborough Cable Access. enthusiastically as a token of our appreciation for all the FCA does to support our public schools and contribute to the vibrant and supportive community that we enjoy here in Foxborough. And I attached the written nomination so the committee would have that, and I also delivered a copy of this letter and the nomination to Mike. And it doesn't go, the nomination does not go far enough to describe all the FCA does in the spirit of above and beyond for our students, our schools, and our town. And so at our December 18th meeting here at this table at 7:00 p.m., Glenn Kuchar, the Executive Director of MASC, will be attending your school committee meeting to present the award. And that we hope, Mike and everybody watching at home and all our FCA friends and volunteers, that we hope as many as possible of the dedicated FCA staff and volunteers join us at the meeting December 18th, 7:00 right here. I don't know who's going to be on the other side of the wall taping, but maybe it can just tape by itself for a while to celebrate this award. We all feel it's very important to recognize the contributions of all of the people from FCA who work so tirelessly in the public interest here in Foxborough. So congratulations, FCA, friends, and staff. You're wonderful. And so we'll have a lot of nice words on the 18th. So thank you for the reminder.
You're welcome. Mike came up to me, a lot of you know I volunteer for FCA. Mike came up to me at one of our events and was really appreciative and thankful. And Debbie, you get a lot of credit. You kept saying, on behalf of us, well, you did all the work, and this is the second partner you've had recognized to my knowledge.
Yes, YMCA. A couple years ago.
Thanks to you, but also obviously great reward for FCA and all that they do for our schools.
They do a lot to recognize individuals in the community.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the turnaround is nice where you get to say, no, we're going to recognize you.
Yeah. And I'm glad we're going to have them on the agenda in December.
Yes. Are we continuing here?
Yes.
I don't know.
To be discussed.
Okay. Well, you just announced it, so I wanted to know. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was changed. Okay.
Yep,
Thank
no.
you.
No,
Okay, not yet.
We haven't.
Okay.
No, we're still working on calendars and opinions and.
All right.
Yeah, the question Marilyn's asking is if the school committee is going to move to the town hall for future meetings to take advantage of their beautiful new meeting room. And we're still in discussions about that.
Yeah.
Bill Keegan, town manager, has invited us to do so and encouraged us to do so. And Foxborough Cable Access is also, while we're on that topic of Foxborough Cable Access, has shared with me that the equipment here is a little outdated and getting a little older, and they've made a beautiful investment there, so we can save them some money. But I think our new superintendent needs to continue to think about it, and I'm thinking about it, and have talked with each of you individually, and appreciate your continued thoughts. And I don't know that we're at consensus yet.
Okay.
But I think it's a worthy idea. Some of the things we're thinking about now are comfort of staff and just ease of staff. We've heard there's some parking glitches up there from time to time based on what else is going on in town. So I don't know that it merits a quick decision.
Okay.
I do have an email back from the folks who booked that room indicating there are some conflicts with our dates.
Okay.
But they're looking at, can they be moved? And so if it's all right, are you okay with us
I
continuing?
was sure to get the list of our dates up there.
Yes, thank
so
you.
that they could look at that before we.
You got the dates up there? Is that okay?
Yeah, I took them up so that Mr. Keegan and his secretary both could look at that too.
Good. Perfect.
And I just want to say, I do remember where the town and the school board like this. And the first person to try to break the ice to smooth over the waters was years ago, was Frank Spillane, when he sat on the advisory committee and tried to start getting us to be more cohesive. I shall say, and so I think that we have come a long, long way, and the openness with which we work with them now and help them with our IT, it's our director who's helping them, and all that. I think it's quite a compliment that they, the town managers come to us and said, would you like to share our space with us?
Well, Mr. Feldman, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, said the same.
Right, absolutely.
It's very, very nice of them to think of us. Appreciate that.
And I think that's a good comment that the relationships are pretty strong and very positive, town and schools. I think it's separate from where you hold your meetings. I'll make it a facetious. I know the kids are comfortable here, and when we have guests with kids, the school has a different flavor, but also you wouldn't be able to run down from your parent conferences now, would you? Just skid right in. I mean, and our kids do that. We often have kids arrive, in athletic uniforms and stuff. So there's a lot of schoolishness to this area that some of us traditionals enjoy. So I think that's why there's a lot of things to discuss one way or the other, pros and cons.
And
on
like
both sides.
we from the dedication of the Massey Suite, we moved from there to our school committee meeting. We've come from some of the foreign language things in the cafeteria to here.
Yep.
So there's going to be the yin and yang.
Two good options, as we say.
But it's certainly, I think it's a compliment that
it is.
The town feels that we're so much of a part of them. They want us. They want to share their new building with
The
us.
Board of Selectmen's been meeting here for years,
That's right.
so it's,
Well,
it's
they're
a
not-
good
That's true.
cohesiveness, right? So we're all
Been
one
here
town.
for years.
Yeah.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
But it
It's all
didn't
good.
used to be that way. It used to be a little contentious upon occasion.
I think we may get to a point where we want to take a vote on this. We'll see. But, I appreciate Debbie's comments about comfort. But I'm still moved by the thought of helping Foxborough Cable save money. I mean, that's what initiated this. And then everyone said, yeah, you should really use it. It's a beautiful room. It is a meeting. This is not a meeting room. That is a meeting room. Perhaps the public would feel as though they could approach us more. I mean, we have visitors on our agenda every week and seldom see them. So I think there's a lot of pros and cons both ways.
Seats are more comfortable.
So anyway, that's the update, Marilyn, on.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're
Thanks,
welcome.
Bruce.
Tina?
Just a couple things. So just we have our joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen next Monday, a week from tonight at 6 o'clock
Yes.
at the Boyden Library to
Oh, at the Boyden.
go over our revenue forecast. So if anyone's interested in that, that's where we'll be next week and kicking off our budget planning season. And just a couple other things, since we aren't having our December 4th meeting because we will all be at special town meeting that night. That week we have some Australian students. We'll
Yes,
be
we
visiting the
do.
high school.
From the
and-
Hale School.
From the Hale School in
That's the
Australia.
music school?
Yeah.
Yes, they're coming back. They've been here.
They did such a lovely tribute
This will be
to
their
Mr.
third
Massey
time here,
when he
actually.
retired.
And,
So they're
yeah.
arriving on Tuesday, December 5th.
And they're having a concert on
Wednesday,
the
the
6th of December. So
That's right.
I just wanted to mention
Yes.
that since we won't have another really
Oh, I'm glad you
another
did.
opportunity.
Actually, their head of school in Australia emailed me a couple weeks ago, just to say, thank you. And we actually have a good long distance relationship.
Is it Wednesday, December 6th?
The concert, yes. So he isn't coming himself, the head of school, but the music people are. But
How
we've
many
actually
students are
had.
coming? I forget.
I forget what he
A
said.
dozen?
I forget what he said, but we've actually had through, because of Steve and his outreach, they came here when they were touring the United States. So their school toured several different schools in Canada and the United States interested in music education. And one of their stops was in Foxborough. And of course, it was their best stop. So now they have a sister school relationship with the Hale School, which is a private school in Australia, actually, an all-boys school. And now we have had this great relationship, and so now they email me periodically as well. It's been really lovely.
Great.
Nice.
Well, it's another global connection.
It
because
is.
We've been talking about those, and it's
I'll
very
have to learn
exciting.
how to say good day.
So that'll be really great.
You should probably go there in retirement and make sure the relations are.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I think that would be a good vacation.
At my own expense. Hey, Hale School, here I am.
Well, that's, I treated myself when I retired to 5 days trekking in the snowy mountains in Australia and 5 dives on the Great Barrier Reef.
Nice.
Yeah, the trekking.
Having survived a high school career, I figured I deserved
I would say so.
a big
I
celebration.
would say so. Tina, anything else?
One other thing, I'm on a music kick tonight. The winter concert is the following week, so it'll be before our December 18th meeting. I want to say that's the 13th, but I'm not sure.
That's a Thursday.
They're usually on the Thursday night.
So
but
winter would be the following week.
Thanks,
I'm
Tina.
not sure. But so those were my things.
Bevy, anything?
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and go Warriors.
That's right. Thursday will be a fun traditional day. Mansfield here. Kendall, anything?
Great stuff about the musical theater program. That's really exciting. and happy Thanksgiving.
Matt Sharkey? Close
enough.
We know who you
quick
are,
question for Mr. Yukna. Is the old Chevy you were talking about, is that Mr. Corliss's?
Yeah.
So
Is that obvious?
It's building into something. So I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know much how the budget works at all, but I know everyone at Foxborough, whether or not they played a sport, has definitely seen him going around helping everyone out, and so I don't know if donations are involved in the budget, but I'm sure we can figure something out with all the people here at school that have seen him drive that thing around that would love to see him get a new one.
We'll work on it.
If you choose to include that, I'm
See how obvious it is when we need a new vehicle, even the kids know who's we're trying to replace. That's amazing.
That was really sweet.
You know, he was the best soccer coach my son ever had.
You were?
I heard he was a pretty good soccer player himself too.
Right, and he was the best soccer coach that my son ever had going through Foxborough High School.
He's a pretty good guy, and
Yeah,
before he
he's-
falls through the
yeah.
rusted out floor, he probably should get
Yeah.
the truck.
You know, when we wanted to go back to playing senior soccer when he retires. We don't want anything to happen to him in that truck, right?
Matt, that was a nice suggestion.
That was very nice.
For a minute, I thought you were going to say you wanted to memorialize the truck by mounting it on a pedestal out in the front of the school.
I
or
was
something.
gonna donate
It
one.
is a relic.
Yeah,
It'll
that's
go in the old truck museum.
That thing is definitely an icon at this point.
That's bad.
All right, everybody, thank you. Does anyone want to motion to go
I
into
will
executive
motion
session?
that we should go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the position for the public body. The committee will not return to open session tonight.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote.
Yep.
Aye.
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 Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Happy Thanksgiving.